Hello everyone, welcome to Truth and Law. My name is Conrad Rogas, and this video will be a bit different. I'm going to talk about a story that's been brought to my attention. We're going to be going to Corvallis, Oregon, and talking about a story in which we have a homeless camp, people that are homeless having their homes, basically their tents being bulldozed, destroyed. We're going to talk about the corruption, and we're going to talk about what goes on in the city. So this in Corvallis is different than what I usually talk about, but it's a friend of mine that brought it to my attention. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give these people a voice who have tyranny being done to them currently. They don't have a voice. So I will give them a voice. I'll talk about it, and this will also give me an opportunity to talk about some other things about property, things that are pretty important to me. So the story of what's been going on. Basically, there's these pictures. There's footage that people who are living like you see here under a bridge, just in public places. Basically, they're having their personal property being taken. This is the core issue: is the theft of personal property. By the way, I'm going to use the word homeless, right, to talk about homeless people. Really, I know now more people say houseless. The word houseless is used, and I agree to give those people more dignity. Houseless is a good term, right? They're missing a house. They're not homeless. Homeless has a connotation of like, it implies that something is missing or wrong about the individual, whereas houseless just pertains to their material and living situation at the time. But I'm going to use the word that we know that is in that we know that has historically been the word to refer to the issue. I don't like the idea of changing language or euphemizing myself. I'm not going to euphemize myself, so I'm going to talk about this hardcore, and I'm going to tell you how I see it. One reason why I really wanted to do this video is because clearly this has to do with activism, right? The goal of activism is misunderstood in my view. The goal of medicine is to get the patient back to health and out of the hospital as soon as possible. I see activists as being the same. I think helping others should be get them on their feet, get them independent, self-sufficient as soon as possible, and then get out of the way, right? But we have we have a mixed welfare state. So in a welfare state, we don't have this. We have perpetual, persistent social programs and more social aid to people that still is not really creating long-lasting or profound change in these people's lives. But at the same time, we have all of our resources being taken out of our money, right? People have resources taken out of their paychecks to go to all these social programs that we never asked for, programs that are corrupt in themselves and do not solve the issue. And I say that to say, you can't demand a house. You can't demand somebody to provide you food or to give you shelter. In the world we live in under natural law, you can't make a demand like that. But what you can demand is for the government to loosen their regulations and remove their fees, because that's what we need to go. And that's all that these homeless people, I haven't spoke to them personally, but if you could speak to them, I'm sure that's what they'll say. They'll say, I don't need you to do anything. I don't need you to donate or do anything. They need the same thing all of us need. They need for people to get their hands off of their own property. And that's what's going on here. And because they're homeless, people do not see the actual injustice being done. And by the way, the only real help for people, the only real help there is in the world is voluntary help by individuals, meaning not by government. Only free individuals can help people. Free individuals in a position of strength can reach a hand out and pick somebody up. That's profound help. And that's why I'm going to link the donate page. I'm going to link Michael Morris. Michael Morris brought this story to my attention, right? This is who inspired me, who gave me the idea to do this. So I'll recommend him and link his site, Evolving Seeds. So jumping in to the details, the first thing I wanted to do is talk about property rights. I actually wanted to present this for a long time now, but it's never come up in a funny way. I want to talk about really what is ownership, especially in the context of a homeless person. What do they own? And what are the property rights of a person who's homeless? And that really takes us to the root of, well, wait a second, where do all of our property rights come from? What is going on with ownership, and does somebody have a right to tell a homeless person to get out and move somewhere? So first things first, what denotes ownership? This is a question that's super fundamental, but I don't think we don't ask ourselves this. It wasn't until recently that I asked myself, what makes it that I own this microphone? Because I do own it. But what denotes ownership? Is it any signature? Is it a name tag? No, it isn't. And it neither is the deed to your house. It's not a piece of paper or a verification that denotes your ownership of something. Because you can own things without ever having documentation, like your body. We all own our bodies, right? So what makes us own that? First, let's get it clear. What does not denote ownership is a linear trace of purchase, although in our current world, that's how we see it. We think that a trace of ownership, like a trace of purchases, is your verification or certificate of ownership. Meaning, I bought this from this person, I got it legally, now it's mine. It was his before, now it's mine. This is how it works with cars. You get the title. It's like the title. But the title is not what makes you own a car in reality. In reality, what gives you ownership is an uncontested claim of ownership. It's all about claims. And that's all ownership is. Somebody makes the claim to something. They make the claim that I own it. Nobody contests it. Nobody questions it. Then they own it. And that's all it is. Now, that, of course, has its limits, because you cannot own the world. You can't own a river or an ocean. Nobody could own the air. So there are limits to that. And that's why you see this map behind me. The United States government will claim to own all of this land. It does not. It cannot. You can't own all that land. And the reason is, your property rights end when somebody's property begins. In other words, if I settle in on some land and I see, this would be a good place to build a house, and I say, okay, this plot of land, I own it now. You make that claim. But there's somebody living there right now. There's somebody standing there right now. You don't own it. You have to take that claim up with that person who's there. Otherwise, you're violating his property rights, which is the rights to his personal space, which is the immediate area around his body. So your property rights end once you hit somebody else's property. If there's nobody else claiming their property, then you can own it. And along the lines of claiming, what is the main claim of ownership? Because a claim is not like, you don't have to announce it to the world or write a sign. The quintessential, basic, fundamental claim of ownership is presence, being there. Meaning, if you reside somewhere, you own it, and you're the only one who's there. You own it, like you are in your body. Presence is ownership. And really, it's two things: presence, and then on a secondary level, maintenance. And that's how you could tell. There's a lot of interesting situations where this plays out. Like, say somebody drops a pen somewhere, and somebody owns that pen right now. Right now, they're the owner of it. They walk away a few feet behind it, that's still their pen. Now, if they leave it for a month, right? If they leave it for a year, for 50 years, and you come across it, and there's a pen laying there by a bush somewhere, does somebody own that pen? Can somebody make the claim that they own it? And this is what legitimizes your claim to ownership, is your presence, meaning I'm in this house, it's my house. If you come in here, I'll tell you, hey, this is my house, this is my property. It's not a piece of paper that I give them that's stamped by some sort of central authority. I just say, hey, this is my house. I'm there, I'm present, I make the claim. But if I'm not at home, that doesn't mean anybody can just walk in their house because I'm not present. So it's presence and maintenance, meaning taking care of something. So if you come across something and you see somebody is using it, it is use combined with presence and maintenance. If you see somebody is taking care of it, this is something that is clearly somebody's inhabiting it, then you don't touch it. So taking it back real quick, I'm not done with this property thing yet, but then when you see a tent, right, you see a tent that's functional, you see somebody's got belongings there, they got their shoes there, somebody's living there, so you don't touch it, right? So these people, these government workers and employees that are doing this to these people, it's basically bulldozing, destroying somebody else's house. Because that homeless person, the property they claimed was a square plot of land, whatever it is, and there was nobody within their area. There was no private property there. Remember, the government claims to own that public property under a bridge, but they actually cannot do that because you cannot own entire resources, entire areas of land where you are not even present there to enforce your claim. The government basically, draws up borders, basically an imaginary abstract fence around a bunch of people. So their property claims are null and void because they claim to own us, the people, right? And they do not. So, really, I think I've made the point. So I'll end that point right there. The homeless people have the right to the space they inhabit. Under a bridge or whatever it is, the little square that they occupy, they actually own it. Not who paved the road, right? Because they paid the road with tax money, which is, no one person can make a claim to that. It's stolen money. It's a public pool of stolen money through taxation. And no one person owns that. No one person owns the wilderness or anything like that. Regardless of what they say about national parks or, sustainable living corridors. They don't own that land. The homeless person actually owns that land. Now that's different from them being camped out outside of a storefront or somebody's house. That is somebody's private property that they built. They went out to go build that. They operate there. They own it. They're present there and they're maintaining the area there. And they can tell that person to get the fuck out. But the government actually cannot because they're not there. It's under a bridge, guys. Like, there is a bit of common sense and reasonable thinking that needs to be incorporated here. I'm not just talking in the legal abstractions, although you can break it down to the legal, and the way I just did it, that is the way property actually works. And if we had a real court system based on natural law, that's how it would be. Because in reality, logically, rationally, that's how property works. Now, let me talk about the city of Corvallis, Oregon, and let's talk about some of the things going on there, and I'll really just lay into the officials there. I'll lay into everybody involved that plays a hand in this, and I'll talk about what's really disgusting about this treatment of the homeless people there. The motto of Corvallis, Oregon is enhancing community livability. Does that sound very sustainable to you? It sounds very green. It sounds very sustainable. So let's talk about all of that community livability. By the way, livability is ability to live, what those homeless people were deprived of. Now, Corvallis, Oregon is home to a few things. It's probably most prominent is it's the home of Oregon State University. This is a college town. It's a big school, Oregon State University, and it's one of the leading schools in sustainability and combating climate change. Which means what? Which means they're all in support of the Agenda for the 21st Century of the United Nations, also known as Agenda 21. That means densely packed, populated cities, people brought into those cities, high monitoring, high surveillance of what the people are doing, tracking the use of energy and resources. This is what we're talking about here, right? This is what combating climate change is. They offer sustainable development courses. Of course, this is part of their curriculum. That's ever changing, so it's tough for me to pinpoint it down. But you know what's going on. But what I did pinpoint is a little booklet that I'll put up here, and I'll read a little bit from this booklet. They did this in 2001, right? So 20 years ago. This is really when there was no climate change yet. It was global warming. This was the thing that was supposed to be the moral premise to get people towards the Agenda for the 21st Century, which is, by the way, that's like 50 years old. So that's, or 30 years old. That's much older. In this booklet, Sustainable Living is really intended for children. This is really the seeds. They're planting the seeds of what this is, this new agenda of how people should live. Now, the whole time I'm talking about this, keep in mind these homeless people, and keep in mind the vision that they have for us. And is it more like how it looks, how they portray sustainable living to you? Or will their sustainable living be much more like that homeless person that got their home bulldozed? Now, this from the booklet Sustainable Living, and the section called Materialism. We Americans are confused. We belong to the world's most materialistic society, yet polls indicate that our deepest aspirations are non-material. Juliet Shore in The Overspent American says we are accomplished at rationalizing, I'll buy the bigger vehicle so my family will be safe, and at ratcheting up, increasing the number of things we need. 59% of the people she polled consider television a necessity, and 17% said cable TV a necessity. What do you think of the percentage would be if she had asked about the remote control? Ask yourself, how many pairs of footwear do I own? Americans average 23. Do I feel comfortable about borrowing things from my neighbors? Why or why not? Why would I buy secondhand? What would I never buy secondhand? And let me just go in ascending order. Television a necessity, cable TV a necessity? Clearly it isn't. Clearly television is toxic, cable TV is just lying to you and programming you as well, right? But they're trying to get at your way of life. They're trying to get at your comfort. They're trying to get at your affluence and prosperity. That's why they want to ask you how many pairs of footwear do you own. And they make it seem like you should feel guilty for owning 20 pairs of shoes. Why? What's wrong with owning that many shoes? I don't understand. You know, what's wrong with having resources? They're trying to play you off as spoiled, right? This is what they were doing to people. Remember, this is 2001, so the economy was way better than it is now. See? Things weren't as bad there. So people really, really were comfortable. And yes, many Americans are, these suburban types have been spoiled. But it's low-hanging fruit. What this is trying to do, what Oregon State University has been engaged in for a long, long period of time, is re-engineering the social structure so that families no longer have a comfortable life. And they ask you, do I feel comfortable borrowing things from my neighbors? I don't. I don't feel comfortable borrowing anything. I feel comfortable owning the things that I use. End of story. And that has to do with self-respect and self-reliance and individualism, not collectivism. If you're borrowing things from somebody, it means you're dependent on them. Why would I buy secondhand? Why should we buy things secondhand? What's wrong with having new things? Now, you know, I buy used things. I buy used books. I'll buy used things. I really don't see the problem. I'll even buy used clothing and bed sheets, which most people would cringe at. So I don't have a problem with this. But I see the agenda. The agenda is that you're not good enough to have a new high quality stuff. They want to shut down production. This is what Oregon State University has been preaching. I just wanted to read that off just to give a little bit of a backdrop of what they're teaching these kids. You know, it's a very progressive school, so you know the things that they're really teaching them on a daily basis today are probably horrific to me and not even known to me. But they're first to tell you that how progressive they are and how sustainable they are. So that's sustainability. These are the roots of it. Now, Corvallis, Oregon is also home to SIGA Development Operations. That's a medical company. That's a biopharmaceutical company. Relatively new one, established in 1995. And they're big business, and this is big pharma. SIGA is big pharma partnered with government. Never been a better example. And what they do is they specialize in antiviral treatment. Antiviral treatment, meaning drugs, meaning pills for illnesses, for viral illnesses like smallpox, monkeypox, cowpox, and vaccinia complications. And they're partnered with government. In 2011, SIGA sold its antiviral drug TPOXX to the United States Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, also known as BARDA. Right? So you may not have heard of that before. Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. If that doesn't sound dystopian to you, it sounds very dystopian to me. Biomedical Advanced Research. See if that won't be used against the citizens, and it is being used against the people today. Now, SIGA has a well-established cooperation with U.S. federal agencies for its research and development activities. It provides countermeasures to the Strategic National Stockpile and the Department of Defense, such as Category A pathogens, using BSL-3 or BSL-4 work, meaning, top secret, highly hazardous, poisonous, toxic stuff, right? Pathogens. In September 2018, it signed a contract with BARDA for the delivery of oral and intravenous formulations of TPOXX to the Strategic National Stockpile, effective for the following years. So this TPOXX, this is their main claim to fame, and of course the government is giving them this big $400 million contract to get that drug out. And you know what else the government did for them? They knocked down all of their regulations, and they made sure that it got through. And they keep making things easier for them to push this drug onto the market. So this intravenous, meaning, IV, meaning to put in your veins, TPOXX, antiviral medicine, so-called. It has no lower weight cap and can be used in infants under the Investigational New Drug Protocol. There's a thing called the Investigational New Drug Protocol, which is basically the stuff that government likes. They'll allow you to use it as a new investigational drug, and you can inject it into infants. Antiviral medication. The whole thing about antiviral medication is actually a hot issue, right? This is kind of a new thing. Antiviral medication was something that we haven't really heard of until the recent years. Viruses were thought of as illnesses that once you catch it, you have to catch it, and your body just has to deal with it and fight it off, because antibiotics won't work because it's not a bacterium, right? It is just a process of illness and recovery. But now you've got all these pills that are going to make people feel better, but the actual mechanism of their functioning, all this stuff it's not all peachy. And they're injecting this stuff into babies, infants. And that's your big money. And that's Corvallis, Oregon. So, like I said at the beginning, keeping in mind the image of that bulldozer sweeping up that guy's tent and all of his belongings down the street. You have this school preaching this stuff about sustainable living, about people not having their own houses, being, not having children, taking this is Agenda 21 really being displaced. And there's the result of their ideology right down the street from them, under that bridge. That's who they're trying to create. And then down the street over there, you've got the SIGA technologies pushing their drugs to babies and getting kickbacks from government, and nobody hears about them, right? And look at the hypocrisy. The only zero carbon emission person in the world, the only person who can really be carbon efficient, is the homeless person. They're the epitome of sustainability. They don't burn no fossil fuels. They don't have no car. They don't have a stove. They don't have a heater. They don't have a generator. They're really living sustainably with nature. You might not like what it looks like, and you should think about that. Yeah, it doesn't look good, right? Living carbon neutral, but this is who they are. They should be celebrated, right? They're living the way that the universities are preaching. They're living the way that the government is telling us that we should be, because all the governments say that they're implementing the UN's sustainability goals, right or wrong. So Agenda 21 is being implemented. And then there's the person who's the shining beacon example of that. And what's happening to them? They're having a heavy-duty industrial diesel engine bulldozer take their shit away. Big diesel engine, not carbon efficient at all. And that injustice is going on down the street from the college that's teaching young people not to have kids. Not to have kids, to have less kids, and not to want to have their own house. That's what's going on. And that's the hypocrisy here. So I personally will not be calling any police departments and talking to them, because I just, that's not how I take action. But there's action to be taken. You can let them hear about it, and I'll link to that, and you can get in touch with my friend Michael Morris, and he has a task force called Thorn, Tyranny Hazard Organization Response Network. So I'll link to that. And of course, the only way the only way these people will actually be helped is if you donate, and also if you spread the word, which is what I'm doing, right? Either way, it's a resource, and either way, these people are taking our resources. So remember, the two ways you can help. You could put more of your resources to where you think it is necessary for people who you think are entitled to or deserving of them, or you could stop those people's resources from being taken by people who feel entitled and who feel that they deserve to take other people's resources. These are your solutions. It's the sword or the shield, and either way, I'm right there in the battle with you. So thank you very much for viewing this video. I'll be doing more of this going forward. It is really like a side mission of This Week in Tyranny, because hey, this is tyranny too, except it's not going to get any attention, and it's happening. These are real people that they're having their shit taken by the same people that are trying to feed you ideologies that are basically going to lead to our extermination. So I'll end it straight like that. Thank you for your time. I'll see you next time on Truth and Law. My website, truthandlaw.com. You can find me on the onegreatworknetwork.com. Email me, get in touch with me. I'm very accessible. So, peace.